There's a level of discipline that feels terrifying to witness. It's not motivation. Motivation is for beginners. This is a force that operates without heat, without passion, and without gaps. It is a slow, cold engine. It's the person who looks exactly the same on January 1st and December 31st. Their consistency is a fortress. They don't negotiate with their alarm clock. They don't check their feelings before starting. They don't have to hype themselves up. Their choices are not a result of a mental effort. They are a law of physics. Inevitable. This isn't normal commitment. This is irreversible identity enforcement. Normal people look at them and feel uncomfortable. They feel a silent accusation about their own lack of structure. The disciplined person is an archetype, a mirror that everyone else wants to shatter. They are feared because they cannot be stopped. They cannot be tempted. This transformation requires a radical new operating system, forged in ancient wisdom and proven by modern neuroscience. It's how Raphael went from a hopeful dreamer to an unbreakable person with frightening consistency. If you are looking for a gentle push, close this window. This is a blueprint for becoming inevitable. This is the system that burns away your old identity. Raphael knew what he should do. Everyone does. The list was short, simple, and always visible. The workout, the writing, the difficult quiet call. The failure wasn't in the knowledge. It was in the repetition of the start and the repetition of the retreat. Monday arrived. A surge of energy. He planned the perfect week, the perfect schedule. He felt that familiar high-octane buzz of motivation. He crushed the first 3 days. This is it, he thought. I finally cracked the code. Then Friday arrived. Not with a bang, but with a slight fatigue. A small mental friction. The phone was there. The couch looked soft. The voice was gentle. Just 1 day off. You earned it. Start fresh on Monday. He listened. He always listened. The next week was worse. The gap had created a canyon. The memory of failure, not the energy of the success, was dominant. Monday's grand plan became Tuesday's desperate catch-up and Wednesday's complete surrender. He saw the cycle clearly. The initial rush of willpower, always followed by the slow, grinding decay of resistance. He was caught in the motivational trap, treating his life like a battery that constantly needed recharging. He would research new routines, new supplements, new hacks. But the problem wasn't the fool. He would look at the elite, the monks, the world champions, the founders, and they didn't seem to be motivated at all. They just were. They didn't appear to choose. They simply executed. Raphael felt the shame. He called himself weak. But the truth was more complex and far more disturbing. He wasn't weak. He was fighting something he didn't understand. The system that liberates you from motivation is not about trying harder. It's about making the decision irreversible. Think of the Zen master, the samurai, the stoic. They do not rely on a feeling. They rely on a commitment that has been made concrete, sealed, and witnessed. Raphael discovered the core concept, identity enforcement. Most people treat discipline as a reversible commitment. They say, I will go to the gym today. If they fail, they change their mind. The system allows negotiation. This creates decision fatigue and weakens the identity. The ancient systems, like the concept of Jizoku continuous persistence in Zen practice, demand an irreversible commitment. You don't decide to be disciplined. You declare that you are the disciplined person. This is the power of the public declaration, the formal initiation. In old schools, this involved a ceremony, a ritual, the witnessing of the elders. It was a spiritual or psychological severance from the previous self. Raphael didn't need a monastery. He needed the same psychological mechanism. He didn't just tell a friend he was going to start exercising. He sat down and wrote his target identity, an unbreakable person with frightening consistency. He did not write it to motivate himself. He wrote it as a legal document of the self. This document became his reference point. Every single potential choice was filtered through this identity. The old self, The negotiating, procrastinating Raphael died in that declaration. He gave it no more power. The secret is the shift. Behavior follows identity. When the alarm rings, the average person asks, "Do I feel like going to the gym?" This is the weak negotiating self. The person operating on identity enforcement simply asks, "What does an unbreakable person do right now?" The answer is instantaneous. It bypasses the conscious, lazy mind. It's a closed-loop system. The person you declared yourself to be makes the choice. You are merely the executor. This is why they seem cold, calm, and robotic. They don't decide. They have already decided. The choice was made months ago, when the oath was taken. The energy is not spent on deliberation, but on execution. They have eliminated the question, and therefore they have eliminated the friction. The moment Raphael stopped negotiating with himself, he felt a strange stillness. He was no longer trying to become the disciplined person. He was simply living up to the person he already was. The internal war was about to begin, but the outcome had already been sealed. The identity was set. The declaration was made. But the human body and the biological brain do not surrender easily. Raphael woke up the next morning feeling the immediate physical drag. The identity was a lighthouse, but the current of biology was still pulling him out to sea. This is the stage where most systems fail. They forget that the brain is fundamentally designed for energy conservation. The mental friction was intense. His mind became a battlefield of sophisticated negotiation tactics. You had a late night, you need recovery. An unbreakable person understands optimal recovery. A lie. Just do half the work today. Consistency is more important than intensity. A compromise that leads to slippage. I'll do it later. I'll make up for it. The ultimate procrastination trigger. This is the internal war. The old identity, desperate and cunning, fighting the enforcement mechanism. It doesn't use brute force. It uses logic, comfort, and the illusion of wisdom. Raphael learned to recognize these internal voices not as truth, but as noise, the biological static of an energy-saving machine. He realized the feeling of resistance was the signal that he was on the right path. Comfort was the trap. He adopted the Samari concept of Metsuka, fixed, unwavering gaze. He didn't look at the whole mountain of work. He looked at the next 5 minutes. His system introduced fixed, non-negotiable time blocks, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., the time of the disciplined person. There was no discussion about the content, only the execution of the block. The friction remained, the biological brain still fought. But Raphael had neutralized its weapon, the ability to delay or renegotiate the starting line. The first 5 minutes felt like wading through cement. His legs felt heavy, his mind foggy. But because the decision was pre-solved, he simply moved. He was a mechanical device executing a pre-programmed sequence. He realized the choice wasn't about the task. It was about which person he was going to be for that hour. The disciplined person always shows up. The friction didn't vanish, but its power diminished. He had achieved a partial victory. He learned that you don't fight the resistance. You simply ignore it and move forward in the fixed time. One of the greatest enemies of consistency is choice. The average person loves variety. They want flexibility. They want a new workout plan, a new diet every 3 weeks, a fresh motivational podcast. This is the tyranny of options. Every decision point is a moment of potential failure, a drain on mental energy. The person who seeks frightening consistency eliminates all options. There is only the one way. For Raphael, this meant a radical simplification of his routine until it became painfully, dogmatically fixed. The gym he went to was always the same. The time he started work was always the same. The meals he prepared were mostly the same. He created a rule book, not a suggestion list. You do not vary the path. You vary the intensity only when necessary, but the path itself is immutable. The road must be predictable. This system sounds annoying. That is the point. Annoying is a feature, not a bug. The repetitive nature of the path removes the need for active thought. The body and mind fall into a rhythm, an unconscious flow state built on sameness. This is the neuroscience of habit automation. By making the sequence identical, the brain moves the process from the energy-intensive prefrontal cortex to the efficient basal ganglia. It becomes automatic. When Raphael started this, people noticed. Why don't you try this new technique? It's better. You're eating the same thing again? Isn't that boring? You are too rigid. You need to be flexible. Life happens. These critics, usually well-meaning, were the voices of the old identity trying to pull him back into the swamp of choice. They feared his certainty because it exposed their own drifting. Raphael learned to treat criticism as confirmation. If people thought he was too dogmatic, he knew he was on track. Rigidity in the core structure is what creates true flexibility in unexpected moments. When the crisis hits, the predictable structure is the anchor. He adopted the Stoic principle. Remove the variables you can control so you can focus maximum energy on the variables you cannot. This eliminates the most insidious question: what should I do today? The answer is simple. The same thing you did yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. The road to unbreakable consistency is paved with repetition, not innovation. It is repetitive to the point of being uncomfortable for everyone else. Embrace the monotony. It is your shield. The single greatest destroyer of the disciplined identity is the gap. It is the belief that a day off is neutral. It is not. A gap is a reversal. The samurai concept of Guji, continuous practice without gaps, is the heart of the frightening consistency. It does not mean continuous high intensity. It means continuous presence. Think of a river. If the water flows, it remains pure and powerful. If it stops, it stagnates and dies. The momentum is the lifeblood. The moment the practice stops, the identity dies a little. The problem with all or nothing thinking is that when you can't do the all, you conclude you must do the nothing. Raphael learned to redefine rest. Rest is not retreat. Rest is lower intensity on the same path. If he was too exhausted for a 90-minute high-intensity workout, he did a 15-minute mobility routine. The goal was not maximum muscle damage. The goal was maintaining the practice. The fire must be fed, even if only with a single ember. He would not miss a day of writing. If he couldn't hit 2,000 words, he wrote one single perfect sentence. The point was the ritual, the showing up. The body must never forget its duty. This is the subtle power of minimum viable practice. It defeats the zero-day rule. The friction of starting is always greater than the friction of continuing, even at low speed. By never stopping, you never have to fully restart. Consistency, when viewed this way, is not about the peak performance of one day. It is about the average performance over a decade. A blade is not made by one massive blow of the hammer. It is made by thousands of taps. Raphael understood that the mind must be convinced every single day that the practice is non-negotiable. The moment you entertain the possibility of a break, you introduce fragility. The practice must flow like a current. If you step out, you must swim against the tide to get back in. Stay in the shallow water if you must, but remain in the current. The identity is the momentum. The moment it stops, it dies. To be truly unbreakable, you must eliminate the need for problem-solving under duress. The disciplined person understands that life is chaos. Sickness, travel, sudden demands. These are not excuses for failure. They are predictable variables that must be pre-solved. This is the principle of pre-solutions, a hallmark of elite systems, from military planning to monastic life. The goal is to remove decision-making in the moment of stress, which is when the weak self reasserts control. Neuroscience confirms this. Decision-making under high cognitive load leads to decision fatigue, which rapidly depletes the energy reserves necessary for willpower. The disciplined mind avoids this by having the answer ready before the question is asked. Raphael sat down and performed a disciplined autopsy of his past failures, mapping every obstacle to a non-negotiable response. This became his when X, then Y rulebook. When I travel and cannot access my usual gym, then I immediately locate the nearest park and execute a fixed, pre-designed bodyweight routine. 100% of the time, there is no searching for better options. When I feel a cold coming on, then I reduce my physical intensity by 75% and increase my sleep by 1 hour, but I do not skip the practice window. When an unexpected social obligation interferes with my fixed 5 a.m. practice, then I complete the practice at the absolute earliest possible moment, even if it is 10 p.m., and I communicate the absolute nature of this commitment to the people involved. There is no discussion. The answer already exists. Consider the ancient systems. A Zen monk's day is entirely governed by bells, not feelings. The bell rings for meditation, the monk sits. The bell rings for chores, the monk works. Sign up. Sign. Their day is a sequence of pre-solved actions. The moment of decision is removed. This is the cold, strategic element of discipline. It's not about passion, it's about cause and effect logic. Raphael understood that the greatest threat was not the obstacle itself, but the opportunity the obstacle presented to negotiate his identity. By pre-solving the crisis, he ensured that the only choice he had left was execution. This rulebook was not a fallback plan. It was an extension of his identity. It allowed him to treat obstacles not as threats, but as simple inputs that required a specific, automatic output. The goal is to function like a high-end system that never throws an error message. It simply processes the new variable and continues operating on its core parameters. That is the essence of frightening consistency. The final stage of the system is the death of the old self and the total integration of the new. This is not a change in routine. It is a change in ontology, the nature of being. Raphael stopped doing the discipline and simply became the disciplined person. The difference is subtle but absolute. The old identity, which relied on motivation and negotiation, had died a slow, predictable death, starved of the energy it needed to fight. What remained was the unwavering core. When people look at Raphael now, they don't see a person struggling to achieve goals. They see an immovable force. They see someone whose consistency is frightening, because it suggests they are operating on a different set of laws. His calm is unnerving. His response to obstacles is immediate and logistical, never emotional. He doesn't complain about the required work because the work is simply an extension of who he is. The discomfort from others is the signal of success. His family and friends, initially supportive, often became distant. His predictable nature makes them question their own chaotic existence. They call him obsessive. They worry he's not enjoying life. But Raphael knows the truth. This rigidity is the highest form of freedom. He is free from the agony of choice, free from the tyranny of motivation, free from the shame of failure. He has achieved the mastery of the small decision, which compounds into the mastery of life itself. He doesn't do it anymore. He is it. Your invitation is now extended. You have the map, the concepts, and the required ruthless focus. You must now make the irreversible commitment. You must declare the death of your negotiating self. What is the target identity you will enforce? Write it down now. Say it out loud. Declare who you are. The choice is not whether you will start. The choice is whether you're the kind of person who has already decided.